backfired the supercharger.
What?
It backfired the supercharger.
Well, haters got to win today. So this is Eric Weingart with Weingart Racing. Things didn't go the way I'd hoped, that's for sure. So anyway, we'll talk about the whole dyno session and what went wrong or whatever happened, and let you guys kind of think what you think. But it will get put back together. I don't know how it's going to happen or what I'm going to change, but definitely not leaving it the same. So let's just start with the beginning, and we'll make it to the end and see what you think. So it was going to make some power, that's for sure. But here we go. So I was going to do a live feed, kind of show all this off, whatnot. But here's what happened. This is the engine. So in case you have forgotten what this is, and I don't blame you, this is a Dart Sportsman Big M block. But it does have ARP main studs. It's got a Cowley's Dragon Slayer crankshaft that they no longer sell. That's a 3.75 stroke, and it's got small block Chevy rod journals as far as the diameter. It runs a Mulliner rod that's special for this that's 6.25 long. It's got a set of Racetech pistons in it, and with the Racetech pistons and these AFR heads that I've ported, it gets about 11.8 compression. The heads are a set of AFR 305s that I heavily ported, and I used them on the 2017 Engine Master Challenge. I changed nothing with the heads except for putting no exhaust valves in. They flow about 400, and they're pretty nice. The camshaft came from Urson, and it's a solid roller, and they spec'd it. It's a 274, 278 on a 116, and 850 lift. For the rockers, they're a Crowler steel rocker, and it's got the DLC-coated tip bushing option, so it's pretty nice pieces. I'm running a 7/16 thick wall exhaust push rod and a 3/8 thick wall intake push rod. The blower, it's the blower shop 1071 high helix, and it's got their manifold. Up top, Mark Whitener did a pair of these, I think they're like 1100 CFM 4150 alcohol carburetors. And before, so as you're looking at this clips, this is before he just put it together, and probably, I think it was in the winter. That's why we didn't do any more dyno testing, because I was afraid it would milk the oil because of how cold it was for all of the temperatures. But he only made a few runs, like 6, and it made 11, 20-ish. And that's where I thought we would start. We'd warm it up, make these pulls, do that stuff. I'd hook up the live feed. We'll start changing pulleys, and ta-da. That is not what happened. This brings us to Thursday. So here it is, getting hooked up all back on the dyno. And I'm hoping, it's going to work out great, right? So here's what it sounds like with Gary just warming the engine up, just at idling. It sounds amazing. And then he's doing a little bit small pulls, just make sure he's got the brake or the valve at the back adjusted correctly. And then we're going to start coming into it. Well, here's the rub. It didn't do well. So what happened was, and I'm going to show you the video here in a second, you get up to like, I don't know, 6,300 RPM, if that, and just start popping and banging, popping and banging. And it sounded like this on the dyno. So one of the first things we tried was, I have these are NGKs, it's the part number, they're a -9. So they're really cold plug. And he had Champions that were in there before, and I don't like Champion spark plugs because they're just hard to read. I don't know if they function improperly or anything, and it was a colder plug, but not as cold as this. But I was like, let me put in these NGKs because this coating will burn off and you get a better tell where the timing is and everything else. Anyway, it also had them pre-gapped to 22,000. Shoved those in there, didn't do a thing. Matter of fact, it even made less power. And So what I did was I said, hey, Gary, and lucky for us on this situation, we've been running off the crank trigger on the front. And I thought maybe that sensor's acting up. Well, I'm about to show you what was actually going on with that. But lucky for us, the distributor that we used on the back, it's got a magnetic drive in it. So we could just switch over and run it off the back. Thank God for that, because we run over in the back and it clears it up and it sounds like this. Now, in fairness, when I had them switch it over, because it was running way rich according to O2s, like in 9.3 ratio, and that's on a gas scale with methanol. That should not be that bad. We even took jets out thinking, hey, this is going to fix it. And I can say this, by accident, we might have had E85 in one of it. And you're like, well, there's your whole problem. This is the beginning of the whole thing. No, we went through like 30 gallons of fuel. So there might have been 5 gallons in there from warming it up and making one of these preliminary non-starter pulls, and maybe that did something, but I can't say for sure. But what I can absolutely say is when we switched over to the distributor, we went from making 1120 before, now we're making 1220. Just from that going up 2 degrees, and it's on the distributor. So it makes you feel really positive that we got it figured out. But I said, hey, let's just put it back on the crank trigger and put it at 28 degrees to make sure it wasn't just the extra timing that's making the thing better. And he does, and it runs like crap. But I need to show you this is the reason why. What's happening right here is this is Gary installing the lower hose onto the water pump. It's an extremely tight fit with the crank trigger being right there. What we think happened was by trying to shove it on, we somehow loosened the crank trigger and it caused it to spin while making runs. This caused it to have less gap or more gap, change timing maybe. I don't know exactly, but it wasn't reading right. And you could look in the video and you could actually see it. This is when it's hooked up on the distributor, so that's the reason why it's running right. But you could see the crank trigger making contact with, that's the harmonic balancer ring with the magnets in it, which is painful for me because that thing was so expensive. But anyway, it's making contact with it, and that's the reason why it wasn't working. Now, you might say, well, you figured it out. When did we figure this out? After it was all done, as we're tearing it apart, and that's when we see it. And so you think it happened while we're figuring this out as we're doing it. No, it's unfortunately after. Because we have the distributor hooked up and everything was running great, air-fuel ratios are looking, pretty good. They're still rich, 10.9s. So I was like, yeah, no, everything's fine. I pulled one spark plug and it looked fine. The timing was where, in the center. Not even at the center, I'll show you in a second, but it was way conservative. Everything looked fine. So this is a mistake definitely on my part. I said, let's just switch pulleys. Well, that pulley setup that you have on there right there is with the least amount of boost. It's only making 6.8 pounds of boost. It's making 1,230 horsepower. That's fantastic. Switching the pulleys is the most aggressive pulley setup I have. I have another pulley that's sitting there, and I did not put it on. For whatever reason, I thought it was a smaller one. Dumb on my part. So we went from 6.8 pounds of boost. If this pulley setup's right, this is a 22-pound setup. So we went from, a little bit of boost to all of it. So we put that on there. And my mistake again, I'm thinking this is going to make about 12 pounds of boost, not 22. But like I said, the air-fuel ratios looked fine. Spark plug looked fine. Let's just give it hell. And hell came. Yeah, that went south real fast. He didn't even get a chance to press record, so none of the dyno data was there. This is as it's loading. By the way, I'm watching the dyno graph or dyno screen to see how much power it's making, like an idiot. So I'm seeing it roll in with like 1,200 foot-pounds of torque and 1,300 horsepower. And this is we're starting to pull like at 5,500. It's still not even at full load. It hadn't grabbed it and dragged it all the way down, so it's going to go higher. When you hear the pa-pang, that's it. It's done. It's still running when it's over, so you can hear it running, but it does not sound great. And it's smoking, as you could tell. I thought, shoot, we just burned a hole in a piston or something, which I was like, I don't know how that even happened, because spark plugs are looking, pretty good. Didn't think anything about it. So we call it quits. We go have lunch, and then we're going to start tearing it down. And this is what we find. This is the inside of the manifold, and you see that the red stains? That's the rust water from inside the dyno, which means there's water in the cylinders for sure. So we pull the spark plugs and we turn it over. It's not just number one, and that's the one that for sure got torched, but it was coming out number two, the back ones, and the thinking was, well, maybe it had so much water that was running over into the other runners, which it looked like it was, but there's more to it than that. So eventually we pull off the head. We see the head gasket is pretty much torched. It burned that up, and at the same process, it managed to burn up the cylinder head as well. So it actually really did torch the head. It burned out, shooting the flames out, and that's what you saw on the thumbnail for this video, but is the explosion just leaving, burning through the aluminum. Looks like a Space Shuttle Challenger type of disaster almost, but that's what happened there. And we thought, well, it was just this one, but let's pull the other head just to see. No, it had ruined the head gasket on the other side, so they had started getting water in them as well. The two front cylinder, the outside cylinders are the ones that seemed like it was getting it. Now, is this an MLS failure or anything like that? No, it's more likely something we did, probably putting too much boost to it with this, but even though it didn't look bad. These are a picture of the spark plugs. Real hard to see because they got drenched in water. But the ones you can see the timing on, it's not bad. There's no melted aluminum or nothing on that. It simply looks like the head gasket just didn't stay. So, yeah, that sucks. But I'm sure there was other reasons behind it that caused this obviously to happen. But this is just the beginning of it. We're going to do some more investigation. But let me show you some more stuff or talk some more. So I guess one of the questions is, well, when did it blow the head gasket? And I actually have an answer, I think, for that. We actually think it blew the head gasket before switching the pulleys. And I'm going to tell you why. When we switched the pulleys, which took us a little bit of time to do, because also when we did that, I went up in jetting because I'd gone down because it was so rich. I'd gone up in jetting. It was still 4 down from what it was originally, but still I'd up 4 from when it made the 1230. Anyway, from the time of us doing that and him switching the pulleys, went to start it. Now, all the times before this when we started, bust right off. This time it sounded like it was kicking against the starter, like there was water in the cylinders, which should have been something's off, something's not right. But everything had been gone smooth from that, so we didn't really think anything of it. And then we make the pull. So chances are the head gasket was gone before that, which means it blew at 6.8 pounds of boost, which seems absurd, especially with 28 degrees of timing on methanol. Chances are that sometime in those cycles that was going on with us trying to figure out what was going on with the crank trigger, my thinking, and I could be wrong, that somehow within that, it was throwing off a signal that was like really, really advanced. And for a few of those cycles, it might have actually caused some cylinder pressure to build up, but not long enough to burn or melt the spark plug, but definitely enough to move the head gasket. That's the only thing I could think. The other thing is maybe by chance we had a E85 in the beginning and it mixed in somehow and that did it. I don't know. I just don't. It was very, very odd. At 6.8 pounds of boost when it's making 1230, I told Gary I'm tickled to death because this is my personal engine. It's probably the most expensive engine I've ever had, for sure. It's funny too because I expected this to happen on the small block Chevy that I was trying to blow up, but it happens on the nice big block I'm not trying to have tear up. but it's meant to replace the engine in the Camaro that makes 1,061. So this way I can run a 4 and just have fun. But the 1230 at 6.8 pounds of boost tickled to death because I could run all day and be fine, right? Clearly something wasn't right with that. So the idea was we'll switch pulleys if I had to go faster. Yeah. But anyway, it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. I really thought, man, we burned a hole in the piston, maybe chunked the block or something, because it was the fire leaving and so much water. I really thought it's into the cylinder wall. The pistons look fine. We actually measured those to see if there was a bent rod too. Nah, they're within 3 to 4 thousandths, maybe even less than that. So they're all looking good there. I don't know if it collapsed the ring land. I don't know if Gary's torn apart yet, because I told Gary, go ahead and tear it down. And looking at the deck on the block, that part looks okay. Probably just a little touch up and it's going to be perfectly okay to reuse. I am curious to see if the mains move, because those are just cast caps. But what is most likely going to happen is when we go back together, it's going to be O-ringed. Now, Gary can't O-ring. So I talked to Mike Henson. Great guy to deal with. He's in Oklahoma City area. Great to deal with. He's going to go ahead and do the O-rings. The thing is, I don't know if I want to reuse those heads, because I know I'm going to have Gary fix them and weld them up, and I'll probably sell them. So if you're interested, whatever. I don't think there'll be anything wrong with them at all. But part of me is like, I wish I had a bigger head, because I want to kill some of that torque. That's way too much torque. I'd rather make slightly more power at the top. If it kills torque, I don't care. There's so much boost that makes the low end power is too much. That's the problem with root style blowers. They make a lot of low. So I'd rather almost kill some of that out. So I'm thinking that the only other thing, I might do something different with the camshaft, although it's looking great. The only thing is, when I took off the heads, I did see a little bit of star pattern on some of the valves, which made me think we're going into some valve float, which I was like, that's weird. So I'd like to save money, get some titanium valves, but I don't know. I can go back together with that, weld that up, because Gary's going to weld that chamber and it's going to get O-ringed or whatever too. But I really think I want to switch heads. It's still going to be an AFR head, because I have to, because of the shaft rockers and those pistons. Hopefully the pistons aren't hurt. If the rings move freely, I'm feeling really good about that. But yeah, that's pretty much the scoop. I'd like to run a better blower manifold too, because you could tell by that looking down there, that alignment sucks balls. Also, because it's flat like that, it feeds it into the other ones. That's why I didn't port it, because I didn't think it was that great. I was trying to get that Royal Ram one, but turns out there's none left, which sucks. I need one for a 9.8 deck. Also, they're like hugely expensive. The Indy ones aren't that much cheaper, but I'd rather have either one of them, because another disadvantage of this manifold, when the brackets were on the supercharger, it's right at the top of the valve cover. So you literally have to take off your throttle bracket just to get to the valve cover on the driver's side to check your valves. Not ideal. But I don't know. I would like to get it running again, by the end of the summer. The thing that it works great on methanol. And by the way, people say you need the injection, blah, blah, blah. No. I mean, look at I took those plugs out many times. They all looked about the same. There was no signs there. So it's as good as it had injection would be. And as far as throttle response, if people say they ain't, bullshit. That thing was snappy as all get out. So I don't know. It just happens. So anyway, haters, you got to win today. Congratulations on that deal. I'm an idiot. I proved it. So, but anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Remember, I'm no Superman. I did race Superboy. I don't pour cast iron heads. You guys take care.